Hello, this is From the North, and today we're talking about issues around identifying as LGBT+ within Asian communities. Now, for some people, that might mean being rejected by family and friends, or even having to hide sexuality from loved ones. Now, to talk more about this, I've got two brilliant guests with me, Matt and Lucky. Would you mind just giving us a little brief introduction to yourselves? I'll start with you, Matt.
Hi, my name is Matt Mahmood-Ogston, and I'm from a charity called Naz Ma Foundation.
My name is Lucky Roy Singh. I'm the British author of Take a Walk in My Big Indian Heels.
Right. The Naz Ma Foundation, just tell me about how that came about.
So the charity works to try and remove the barriers that prevent some religious or cultural parents from accepting their LGBTQI children. So we go into schools, colleges, universities, and we try and have conversations about the challenges that some people face from their own parents when they have a particular strong interpretation of their culture or religion. The charity was set up sadly because my beautiful fiance of 13 years, Nazs, sadly he took his own life in 2014. Just 2 days after being confronted about his sexuality for the first time by his family.
What did they say to him?
What happened was one of his relatives made him break down in tears, and that resulted in one of his parents come running over to him saying, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying? Is it because you like men?" And this was the first time at the age of 34 that Naz had been ever asked that question outright, and actually, to his face. And so in that moment he did the thing that perhaps he's always wanted to do but always felt that he couldn't do. And that was, in that moment, he said, "Yes, I do like men. I'm in love with Matt. We've been together for 13 years and we were engaged to get married." And the reaction from his parent was to tell him that he had to go to a psychiatrist to be cured of being gay, because they'd heard it on radio programmes that gay people could be cured. And he replied, "Why do I have to be cured? There's nothing wrong with me. Why can't people just accept me for who I am?"
And how was that for you, having to be with him secretly? Did any of his family know?
Some relatives did know about us, but they kind of, for example, the parents, they just knew I existed as a flatmate. They knew I was there, but just renting a room out of the home that we shared. But right from the moment that we met, Naz told me very clearly, very transparently, the situation, his family, his religious background, or the religion he was brought up into.
What was that? So
he was brought up in a Muslim family, and the third question he actually asked me, after he asked me to sit down and asked me my name, he said, "I'm a Muslim, is that going to be a problem?" Well, of course, to me, it didn't matter either way. But he was so honest that he always wanted honesty back from people. And so right from the outset, he talked to me about his family, he talked to me about the challenges. He knew that our relationship could never be found out, particularly from certain family members and the parents. So we knew straight away what that situation was, and we just had to deal with it.
What was he living in fear from? What was the worry? If they find out, then what?
As a gay person, for example, one of the hardest things we can ever do in our lives is actually to come out to our parents, particularly if they have a strong religious interpretation or conservative religious interpretation. Because in that moment, when you come out to your family, the individuals that you love most in the world, if you come out and tell your parents that you're gay in that moment, you don't know how they're going to react. And sadly, in the cases that our charity hears about all the time, is when a parent reacts really badly, and often those individuals, they fear for their safety, their mental health. Sometimes the parents have actually are trying to hurt them physically, mentally. And in some cases, their parents are actually chasing their own children out of the house and down the road. So the fear comes from, you never know how your parents are going to react, because in that moment, everything that you love, everything that you know in your life, your family home, everything, that could disappear in an instant. And so if you know your parents have a strong interpretation of, or strong conservative interpretation, then you know perhaps what their attitudes and views might well be towards homosexuals.
I mean, look, we'll bring you in here and we'll talk a bit more about your personal story, but what's it like for you hearing that about Naz? Is that something, you're from a different background, but is that something that resonates with you?
It definitely does resonate with me, and it's a major factor that you're telling your child that you can't be something that they know is right and feel, and for him to take his own life is heartbreaking in any case, you know, and obviously it does pain me quite a lot.
Yeah, to be driven to suicide.
Yeah.
Is that quite common, Matt? Is that what you've heard of within the foundation?
We certainly have heard a number of stories. In 2016, we actually lost one of our close friends who's from a different religious background, but still the family, the parents were actually okay in our friend's situation, but it was the uncles that took great exception towards having a gay son within their family. And they had systematically then told him it was shameful to bring that into the family, it was shameful to bring that to his parents, and sadly, our dear friend, he's sadly no longer here because of the pressures from his wider family. And it's really important to point out that this is a common across all conservative religious interpretations. It's not, you know, our stories, particularly in one area, but we get people contact us from different religious backgrounds where their families have that strong interpretation against gay people. Then this is where the problems and challenges actually are.
And then you hear that word a lot, don't you? Shame on the family. Lucky, is that something that you heard?
A lot, shame and dishonour. Those are the two major factors, and it kind of makes you feel disgusting in yourself when it shouldn't, because you are what you want to be at the end of the day, and if your family don't accept you, it is quite painful. You've already not been put on the table what your sexuality is, you've not discussed it openly because it's never addressed in any Asian background or any Asian family. So what other option are you left with but suicide? I've lost 4 friends from childhood to suicide, 4, and they've all been LGBTQ.
Really?
And it's heartbreaking.
And they just felt like they couldn't be themselves
They couldn't.
in this world, in the communities that they lived in.
They couldn't, no.
And you've come today dressed as female.
Yeah,
I know.
to make a statement.
Absolutely, but you do dress as male as well.
Yeah, I do.
But your story is
quite unique.
Very unique. Just tell us a little bit more about it.
So my background is I did drag from a very young age, privately, initially, and drag is dressed as a girl. It's not being a female. It's not a gender or anything like that. So for me, when I was doing that, I was playing with my feelings, my emotions, and expressing my queerness as a person.
Why did you do it in private?
I did it in private because it's still not discussed.
Were you a bit scared?
I was a bit scared, obviously dressed as a woman. It was something that wasn't done, but for me it was expressing who I was, my internal self. So I did it in private, and then I met my boyfriend, and we got together, and we were in a relationship for 5 years together. Initially, it was my dream to get married, but I knew I couldn't do it religiously from our background. We both knew we couldn't. So he asked his mum, and his mum said the only way that I could do it is if I dressed as a woman. I already do it, but this time I'd have to portray that I am an actual woman.
Did you find that almost accepting because she was allowing you to marry her son?
Like, that was the love of my life, and I was able to marry him. So I would have done literally anything to marry that man because I loved him so much. So that was like a rope for me to say, okay, I can do this. I did feel a lot of shame and dishonour because I was dishonouring my own family.
Did they know what was going on? Did they come to the wedding?
No, they didn't. They didn't come to the wedding. I didn't tell them. I told them I was moving away for work. So technically, they were okay for me to go off and live my life.
And they still didn't know that you were gay and that you did drag?
Although I did come down in pink rollers numerous times. And I was like, I was trying to make it as obvious as I could, but unfortunately...
You wanted to tell them?
I did want to tell them.
You really wanted to have that conversation?
As a child, you don't know how to have that conversation, though. There's nobody in mainstream to sit you down and say, this is how you address the subject. Do your parents discuss They don't discuss it at religious seminars or, when they go to the temple, church, mosque. It's not something that's discussed at all.
So going back to the wedding day...
Yeah.
Did all of the guests think that you were a woman? Did you have did you go by a different name, or did you...
they give me a wife name which is Lucky instead of Lucky, which is, something like that. But then during that phase, I had a veil on, anyway, a religious veil on. I was sat on a broad stage, so people were just taking pictures from afar and stuff like that. But the abuse actually started that very day for me. As soon as I said I do in the civil service that I did, my mother-in-law pinched me on my arm because I was messing around in my veil and people were taking pictures, and she was like, we spent all this money on this massive wedding and you're messing around.
And did you think after that things are going to go back to how we want them to be?
Yeah, because I made a plan when we sat down and discussed the wedding that we would live with them for 3 months only. But it turned into 9 horrific months for me because something kept cropping up. A family member was falling pregnant, there was a wedding we had to attend, there was so much stuff that was going into it.
How was it for you living that life, being forced to be a woman all of the time?
Being a woman is very difficult, I have to say, so hats off to every woman that, you know, because it is 10 times as difficult for you guys, I'd have to admit. But the way that they wanted me to be a woman was with a headscarf on. They wanted me to cover my face and bring hot cups of teas in. They wanted me to dress an appropriate way. Drag is completely different from that. You know, I'm able to wear what I want, behave how I want, and do what I want. That was like being structured into such a mentality with abuse and obviously physical and mental abuse as well to go on top of everything that you have, being dictated at every level. And it was horrific. I was like having an out-body experience. I was having so much anxiety, so much stress levels, because it was horrific.
What is it then, well, Matt, is it cultural? Is it religious? Why is there still the need to hide?
Well, where a family isn't accepting towards a particular attribute towards their child, for example, you know, if they are gay, for example, if they feel that within their community, then that's going to be looked down upon. That's going to bring shame, in quotes, to their family, towards their family. That's when families can, particularly the parents, can actually react really adversely and really negatively.
Be disowned?
Disowned. I mean, we have nearly half the work that we do, we help individuals who are born in different countries, and the stories that they come to us with, they have death threats against them sometimes from their own parents. So, and this is because the families in the clients that we work with, you know, their families absolutely do not want to have a gay child within their family because they deem it unacceptable.
What do we do to change it?
I think we need more representation. That would go for, I would say, not just black and white. It should be Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs. It should be black people, white people, Christianity, Jewish people, because there's nobody that's in mainstream at the minute that people can visibly see. Especially for me as a Sikh person, we don't have nobody that's out there but one person that I can vividly see on mainstream. So how would a child, how would a parent, how would anybody know how to relate to somebody or discuss a subject like this?
Do you think that would make it more accessible for people then if you know, simply seeing somebody who looks like them or
it's living their authentic life,
yeah,
yes,
on screen.
On screen, because everything's now social media, everything's like on TV, and also the work that we all do individually, like stuff like this today, this is going to raise a huge amount of awareness. But we need it. We need awareness that the Matt and Naz Foundation do, Carmen Nirvana do, Albert Kennedy Trust do, the work that I do personally. You know, we need it out there, but it needs to be more people contributing to make it a safer, better place for us all. Sadly,
you did have a suicide attempt yourself, but you escaped that life, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I have recovered very well, and that's thanks to my parents, because they seen their child was in a mess. They seen, before anybody's a queer person, or they're a human first, a parent's instinct should initially be to protect their child. And when they see me in that hospital bed, they knew something was wrong. So they got me the therapy, they got me the support that I need. I signed up with charities to be able to share my story and help people, to schools, colleges, unis, as I stated. You know, I've turned my life around, I've got a good job now, good family, friends, and supportive foundations, you know. So it's really been good.
Do you wish you'd spoken to them sooner?
Yes, I do. I really, really do. I didn't give them the opportunity, which is a lot of things that queer people don't tend to do. But then again, how do you do it? Because it's not discussed. It's not, there's nothing for somebody that's queer to say, okay, this is how you go about discussing this with your parents. I know the Naz Ma Foundation did the Out and Proud Parents Day, which is a really brilliant initiative that they brought forward. So stuff like that, if that continues to happen and the growth, then a lot of people will be able to maybe have that conversation and not be in the circumstances that I was in, because it was horrific.
Well, you've used that word horrific, and Matt, that you went through something horrific by losing, well, you called him your beautiful Naz.
Yes.
How common is this amongst many other people? We've heard your two stories, but just give me an idea of how big is this?
Okay, one study showed that individuals, LGBTQI individuals, who come from unaccepting families, so they are over 8 times more likely to try and take their own life. So that was one study that showed that. So you have to realise that by families not accepting their children, that is increasing their chances of them not wanting to be here. And I think every parent watching this needs to sit up and really listen to this fact, because a lot of the stories go unreported. The families don't want to talk about them. So we hear some of these stories through friends of friends who have lost friends. They just disappeared all of a sudden. They can't get any answers from the family. And yet they come forward and they say, look, we think this has happened. We have no evidence, we have no proof, but our friend has gone. And so it really is important that we actually do exactly what Lucky said, and actually we increase visibility and allow people to explore and understand more that the human species exists on a spectrum. We're a wide variety of individuals from different backgrounds, different gender identities, different sexual orientations. We are a beautiful species that exists on this wide spectrum. And so it's really important for people to understand that we're all different, and that should be celebrated.
Yeah, absolutely. And my final question to you both really would be, what would your advice be to some of those perhaps young people, perhaps they're much older, perhaps they've been living a life for a long time, who just want to be themselves? It's not necessarily easy, is it? What would your advice be?
I would say come to terms with yourself first as a person, because that's the most strongest thing you can do, is acknowledge who you actually are. Obviously look out for the foundations that are available, as I mentioned before, the previous, even Naz Ma Foundation. Again, just contacting and speaking to somebody about that issue may give you a lighter heart to be your authentic self or help somebody. There is helplines available, there's loads of things that you can do, but I would say go out there and try and be the person that you are, because nobody's going to do it for you.
And how are you now that you are living that life?
I'm loving my life at the moment, I have to say, touch wood. Everything's going good. I've got my book out, my second book's coming out. I've got a great job. People, as I said, everything has been going really, really well.
Go on, give us the name of your books.
Take a Walk in My Big Indian Heels, which is available on Amazon, and my second one should be coming out soon, and hopefully a Netflix deal I'm hoping for.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
and you're, Matt, been working on a documentary as well?
Yes, that's right, because it's really important to have visible role models, both as individuals and also as parents. So we recently completed our first documentary called My God, I'm Queer, and it follows 10 queer individuals from Muslim families as they talk about their experiences, their life, but ultimately we want people who watch the film to feel inspired to be the person they were born to be. And I think for parents, as Lucky said, last year we launched something called Out and Proud Parents Day, because where are the role model parents? Where do parents turn to see other parents in their situation who are accepting of their children? So last year, on the 30th of July, the day that my Naz sadly passed away, we launched something called Out and Proud Parents Day, where we encourage proud parents of LGBTQI children to come out in public on social media to show the world how much they love and are proud of their children.
It was brilliant. It was absolutely
And this
brilliant,
year we're going to do exactly the same, 30th of July, and that's really what we want people to do. Is if you are LGBTQI, you're not on your own. Reach out to our charity or the other charities, but you realise that you're not on your own. There are people who are here who want to love and support you. And parents, if you have an LGBTQI child, just hold out your arms, just give them a big hug and just tell them that you love them.
Thank you so much. I really wish you the best with your documentary and everything else that you're doing. And if you have found anything that we've spoken about quite difficult in the meantime and you want any more information, please have a look at the links in the description. And we've got the Naz Ma Foundation as well, plenty of places to go and get a little bit more information and support. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.